We have Lisedi in the space, and as the topic of the day is tax, he is our tax man. So yeah, good evening, Lisedi. Could you please introduce yourself to everybody and tell them who you are and how you're gonna change our lives?
Yes, thanks, Amanda. Yo, I'm so sorry to everyone. Everything that went wrong did. So yeah, I feel like such an old person. I can't even use Twitter Spaces. The app was refusing to download because I don't have Twitter. Because I'm trying to stay free from all these hectic conversations that go sour. But yes, can everybody hear me? By the way,
100% Sedi.
I
yes.
can also hear
Can
you.
Yes, I'm Lesedi Seforo, tax practitioner. I studied at UCT. I studied accounting and tax. I've been working exclusively in tax for the last 9 years. I Until last year November, I ran a firm. A black. I owned a tax firm with some two other partners. It was a black-owned tax firm, so we had a lot of clients, mines. Investment holding companies, private equity. So we've done taxes for all those, and we've done also for high net worth individuals and even the everyday person. Right now, I'm an independent tax practitioner. Uh, yes, so I've been doing that for the last few months, and I'm 34 years old. So yes, that's I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, and you're welcome. I mean, you are excused because there's so much that we learned that we didn't even know about while we were pushing time waiting for you. So thank you very much for joining us and making the time. I think I will just give you the floor to speak to the topic because I think all of us in here are very much interested in knowing how we can save from tax or from our for our inputs, and but there's so many things that we still don't understand that you would probably get us to understand. I did post um some of the interviews that you've done and the script that you've written, and I did ask everybody to just go through it to understand in layman terms what or who SARS actually is. So you'll just take it away, and after that we can see where we can go.
Yes, I just wanted to get a sense of my audience because sometimes I don't want to pitch it too high or too low. And you'd find that you guys are already very acquainted with text and you only want specific parts of it. So, can I get a sense of what kind of farming do you guys do just overall different? I heard there's a bee farmer. That was very interesting. And I know you do, Amanda, you do poultry. So I just wanted to find out also if you guys are registered for VAT. You already have accountants, just to get a sense of you're familiar with the overall business tax system before we get specifically into farming.
Well, I think there's a mixture of people in the space. There's different kinds of farmers, and there's actually my co-host that I just lost now due to network. He only registered his company recently, but he's been doing farming for a while. So he registered the company so he can have the business account, so he can be able to get such things. So basically, I think you can start it from the bottom up because we're a mixture of people.
Yes. All right. Okay, I'll just start overall with the different tax types for businesses. Of course, the tax law does allow anybody. By the way, feel free to interrupt whoever needs more clarification. So, the tax law allows a person to be a sole trader in farming as well as a company, register a company and do farming that way. The sections in the Income Tax Act, which is the main tax that businesses pay. So businesses will pay income tax, VAT, and employees tax, PAYE. So the parts of the income tax act that deal with farming are actually some of the more complex, complicated sections. So there are very specific calculations with even specific values for whether something is cattle or sheep or those kinds of things. So I don't want to get into those technicalities overall. I think where some of the discussion is useful is with the from the VAT side. Uh, where it comes for the things that you can buy that are not supposed to have any VAT, or even what you can sell that you're not, you don't have to charge VAT on those items. But of course, with VAT, let's start there because it's an easier tax. It is compulsory to register for VAT if your sales are above R1 million in a 12-month period. So I know that there's a lot of people who register for VAT anyway, but I just want to say that you don't have to. But I do know that for business purposes, there are some clients or customers you may have who require you to register for VAT, so you do so. Uh, so yes, the other thing that is important with farmers is the diesel rebate. Usually, we find with farmers that there is machinery on the farms and those kinds of things that use diesel. Is that the case for anybody here?
I think yes. I know Zolile is a plant-based farmer. No, he does milk. I don't know if he uses diesel, but I know that there's plant-based farmers here in the space, and they do use tractors on their farms.
Yes, and I'm assuming a lot of. Sorry, there's gonna have to be a back and forth here. It'll just help me. I'm assuming a lot of you are registered for that, or what's the situation there?
Uh, I, I, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of people that are registered for that. I
Okay,
don't think there's a lot of people registered for that. Yeah.
all
Hi,
right.
Zolile.
Hi, hi. Yeah, I wanted to say that I use a lot of diesel, so I'd actually want to know how the process of getting a diesel rebate.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you do use diesel. All right, thanks. You can go on, Lisedi.
All right. So let's just start with what is a diesel rebate. Essentially, you have your sales. If we start from the beginning of the VAT system, you've got your sales, and then you must charge VAT on the relevant items. There's other items that you don't have to charge VAT on, and then you subtract all your expenses on which you paid VAT, and then the VAT, what they call output VAT minus input VAT, that's the net VAT that you must pay over to SARS. Now, from that amount that you calculate the VAT that you owe SARS, you can claim what is called a diesel rebate. The diesel rebate is effectively, uh, you buy diesel for use on various machinery, or you use in the course of farming. And I don't know, you guys will know that when you look at the price of petrol or diesel, it has a fuel levy on it. Also, there's a road accident fund levy. Now, those two levies are they are specifically applied to most of us who we buy diesel or we buy petrol when we are driving. So they're used to that. So that means that those who buy diesel and they are not using it for driving on the roads. They're using it for other things like mining, generators, those kinds of things, as well as farming. Those people technically are not supposed to pay the portion of the diesel price that includes the fuel levy and the road accident fund levy. Last I checked, that levy was 3 Rand 50 per liter. So out of the entire price, yeah, diesel, 1 liter of diesel, 3 Rand 50 goes to the fuel levy and the road accident fund levy. So you are entitled to claim that portion of a liter of diesel that you use in the course of farming. So that's a very specific term that the tax law uses. We are talking about things like tractors, generators, any other farm farming machinery that uses diesel. I do want to say that SARS last year, I worked on a mine that used a lot of diesel, so they were registered for the diesel rebate, and they used it quite extensively. But SARS is very strict on that rebate, and it requires such detailed admin and logbooks. You literally have to track how many liters are you buying every day or every week, every month, how many liters went into which machinery, what is the opening balance of those liters at the beginning of the month, beginning of the day versus at the end of the day. So for SMEs like yourselves, I would have to maybe advise you specifically, person by person, for whether or not it is worth your time, because you've got better things to do, and perhaps maybe systems are not yet in place to fully utilize this thing. Because I do know that as small business owners, which I was for the 4 years, for the last 4 years, there's a lot that you're having to deal with, and the admin that goes into something like a diesel refund is it can be quite a lot. So that's what I will say about that. I just want to find out if there are any questions at this point before I go on.
Yes,
Israel, did you have a question?
yes, Sisi. Please, good evening,
Yes.
everybody. Yes, while we're still on rebates, I would like to know then how does this work? I've never tried it, but I have some machinery. So how would I claim this rebate to SARS? How would I keep my receipt? I would believe that I have to keep my receipt and have to submit together with the logbook. How does this happen? How would then SARS differentiate between a receipt I received at the fuel station for a vehicle and for a sort of like a tanker?
Yes. Well, the first thing, you are right. You do need to keep all the receipts for diesel that you buy. Then, okay, before we get there, you need to register with SARS specifically for the diesel rebate. It's a separate application that is different from the normal VAT registration, number one. So there's something called a VAT 101D, and that has to do with the diesel rebate. Then you must register your, not register, but you must basically keep track of the different machineries and vehicles you have on the farm that use the diesel. You must know the capacity, let's say the amount of liters that each item can hold. On your tax invoice, it will show how many liters of diesel you are buying. The logbooks have a lot of things there. They can guide you, because SARS wants a paper trail, an audit trail. They don't seem to want 100% accuracy, but just enough for them to see what. Maybe you're not using that diesel for normal. You just bought it for your buggy or your car, and you're using it except for farming. So the big thing there is the opening balance and the closing balance for the liters of diesel that you are using, and that is in the different machines and vehicles, let's say, that you're using on the farm, tractors and whatnot. So for instance, it would want you to say, okay, uh, let's say you want to claim diesel for every day of a particular week. So it would say, okay, in the tractor, what is the opening balance of how much how much diesel is in that tractor at the beginning of the day, how much diesel is in that tractor at the end of the day, and therefore how many liters of diesel have you used on that machinery during that day. So for instance, let's say you buy 50 liters. So your your tax invoice will show 50 liters there, and then let's say you put it in a tanker, and then you will dispense it to the different machines and whatnot. So you must not only have a logbook for the tanker, but you must also have a logbook for the different machines and vehicles into which you are uh, using the diesel, so that the tanker itself will have an opening and a closing balance at the beginning and end of every day or week. So it allows them to really see that you are really not taking advantage of the system, because many people have used the system to literally defraud SARS of so much money. And SARS SARS is extremely strict on auditing that diesel rebate. And that's why I was saying also the level of record keeping is unbelievable. I've done a lot of taxes: income tax, VAT, employees tax, dividend tax, and diesel itself, and that one by far. I mean, it was such that, for instance, the mine that we were assisting with the diesel rebate audit, which SARS had decided to audit for the last 5 years of that mining operation. That mine's equipment is so sophisticated that it uses an electronic system where the different machines can track that at the beginning of the day, this is how many liters, at the end of the day, this is how many liters. And that's fed into a system that those guys are using. So, no doubt, that's a very expensive system there. But sometimes with tax, things are cost benefit, and you don't want to do all this work and then you are only getting a diesel rebate of like a few hundred rands compared to all the amount of effort and time that is going into that. Nevertheless, if you still want to uh, you know go in that direction, perhaps we can take that conversation offline and I can go further into it.
Thank you, Puti. Izwe, you sorted, right?
Yes, thanks, Sisi, and thanks, Puti. You sorted me. It was clear. Thank you very much.
All right, thank
All
you.
right. Let me say, just talk about general business tax issues, and because I've done work for a lot of SMEs, from those that have just 100,000 rand per annum in revenue to a lot more. And I just want to say that, as far as income tax is concerned and being registered with SARS or income tax, when you register a company, it automatically gets an income tax number. Then you will have to register the company on e-filing. No doubt a lot of you are already familiar with that process. One, whether or not the company is trading or dormant, even if it's dormant, you must still submit an income tax return for the company. Um, yes, so you need to do that, and that's even if you submitted that the tax return is dormant, that the company is dormant during that year, that's fine. It still needs to be done. Tax clearances are very important for any business. So I'm sure a lot of you, maybe you need funding or anything like that. Uh, Essentially, what a tax clearance is a statement, a document that says that all your tax affairs are up to date. In other words, all the tax returns that need to be submitted have been submitted, and all tax payments that need to be made are made. So, anybody who owes SARS, generally, you will not get a tax clearance certificate unless you pay that debt. But of course, that's not possible for a lot of business people for cash flow issues, financial difficulties, in which case you can request a payment arrangement with SARS to sort out the debt and still get the tax clearance. Okay, is this talk or you have a question?
Oh, I wanted to ask that is this diesel rebate for only tax registered farms, or any farm can just go and claim the rebate?
Can you repeat the question?
Is the rebate for is the diesel rebate for tax registered farms, or is it just for any farmer in general?
No, you must specifically be a farmer that is registered for VAT, specifically VAT. And in order to register for VAT, anybody can who's trading in a business can register for VAT. However, uh, in terms of compulsorily, those businesses that have revenues in a year exceeding 1 million rand, those businesses have to register for that. If you are still below a million rand revenue per annum, you do not register for VAT, but you can register for VAT if you want to. It's best not to register for VAT if you don't have to, because you'll find that it's a lot of admin, and overall your whatever you're selling, I can tell you now, well, it goes without saying, whatever you're selling, you will have to increase your prices by 15% in order to be in the same place that you were, because the VAT rate is 15%. So that's why we find that a lot of companies and small business owners, their prices, whatever they are, the minute they pass a million rand per annum, they have to register for VAT and uh, increase their prices by 15%. Otherwise, if you don't, then the 15% is taken from the current prices, in which case you are 15% worse off in terms of revenue and those kinds of things. Uh, have I answered you?
Okay,
Uh,
I think.
yes, 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 totally. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yes.
I also just wanted to, because for the company that I work for, I have to submit invoices in and out and payments and what every two
Yes.
months
Yes.
to do returns for VAT. So people really need to weigh their options if they want to register for VAT for diesel repaid, or just continue paying the 30 rand 50.
Yes, yes. So cost benefit analysis, like I said, the amount of admin, and sometimes SARS even disallows. A lot of times we've seen SARS disallowing the diesel refund for certain taxpayers. A lot of times you can be off by just one logbook or just a small point, and then they disallow the entire diesel refund. So that's how strict and in many cases even unreasonable SARS is got the diesel rebate. Okay, let me go back to income tax. Uh, yes, the income tax is only payable on profits. So if you are making losses, and losses, of course, is according to your financial statements. If you're making losses, you don't have to pay income tax. In fact, the losses that you make in one year must be forwarded to a future year, so that eventually when you do make profits, then you can subtract all the losses that you made in previous years from the profit that you'll make, so that will reduce your tax. So that's why it makes sense. I know that a lot of some businesses do not do this. They, if they made a loss, they just put zero in the tax return, which is fine, because overall they will not owe SARS anyway. But they are missing out on saving tax in the future years when they do make profits. And I hope that is clear there, so none of you does that. Um, Okay, so there's that. So losses are important. As far as I said earlier, I did say that the calculation of how much tax a farmer will owe is very complicated. There's a specific section in the act that's even dedicated to that. It takes care. It looks into things like droughts. It looks into your opening and closing, the opening stock and closing stock of your uh, I want to say crops of your animals, livestock that you have, those kinds of things. I did say that livestock for tax purposes are given a specific value. So you may find that maybe a certain cow is worth 8,000 rand. I'm not a farmer, so I don't know the prices, but for tax purposes, there's even a regulation that's issued that says one cow is 50 rand for, they call it a standard value in tax. But yeah, so things like that are applicable there. There's even a certain document on the SARS website that it has a schedule of how to calculate what is called the taxable income for farmers. Taxable income is it's just a tax word for saying profits, because you have profits according to accounting, and then for tax has its own calculation of profits. So you may find that for accounting purposes, your profit is 100, but for tax, you make certain adjustments from that 100, and then you may end up with profits of maybe 85 or even 110. So those things, that's why it's useful to have a guy who knows what he's doing. You do not calculate the tax on profits the way you calculate any other company tax. If you do that, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot, because chances are you're paying more tax, because the income tax regime is actually favorable to farmers. Of sometimes allowing certain expenses much larger, in a larger way than it would for other types of businesses. So yes, please do that. But hey, if things are tough and you just want a simple calculation, you can do that as well, if you cannot afford some of these more expensive accountants. But usually there's somebody out there to help you. So yes, that's income tax. The tax rate for the tax on profits for South Africa is currently 28% of profits. However, it's about to go down. Last year, in the budget speech, in the budget documents, they did talk about they're going to reduce it to 27%. If a business is what is known as a small business corporation, which is a defined term, the tax rate on profits is not 28%. It is according to tax table, certain tax table. So you may find that from zero profits to 71,000 rand worth of profits, instead of 28%, there's zero tax on that portion. From 70,000 rands of profit to about 100 and something, then you get to a 7% uh, tax rate. So overall, it's useful to be classified as a small business corporation. So you ask, you're probably wondering what that is. The first thing, your income for your farm, which is a business, must be lower than 20 million rands. Number one. Number two, you must have at least three full-time employees. And of those three full-time employees, none of them must be a relative, or what the act calls a connected person. So those are some of the things. You're already doing farming. So yes, so once you meet those qualifications, you're a small business corporation. Whatever profits you have, you don't have to pay 28% tax on profits. You pay according to a very more favorable rate. In fact, uh, the more your profits are, however, there's an amount of profits where it's really 28% above a certain amount. But I've done calculations for companies where you compare, okay, if it was a small business corporation, how much would the tax be versus not? And you can save up to about 100 and something thousand rand in tax on the profits. So yes, that's very useful. You don't want to be, for instance, making profits of, let's say, 50,000 rand in a year, and you are actually a small business corporation, but somebody never knew of it or considered it. 28% of 50,000 rand, what is it? About 15,000 rands, I suppose, maybe let's say 13. So a person would just be paying 13,000 rand to SARS when they don't have to, because from profits of 0 to 50,000 rand, they to 71,000 rand, you don't have, there's zero tax on profits for a small business corporation. Okay, are there, is everybody fine now, or any questions?
I think I just have a question in regards to other things that a farmer can save on, like the diesel rebate. Can we save on feed as well?
Yes, you can save on feed. In fact, I kept this list of items that you can save on. Uh, with tax, there's always specifics. So most of the answers to questions is it depends. The only people who can save on things like feed and pesticides and things like that are people who are already registered for that. So in other words, the things that you buy, those things that you're purchasing, that let's say you are registered for that and you're buying feed, pesticides, and other things like that. I'm about to check the list just now because it's a bit of a long list. You must be registered for that. So the person who sells you that, whatever it is, the invoice mustn't include that, whatever they're charging you. And usually you will have to prove to them that you are a farmer. I believe when you register for that, there is a part in they call it the notice of registration document that shows whether you're a vet vendor. That document will say there that you're a farmer. And then that person can sell that item to you without VAT. So those are your expenses. Just give me a second to check. In the meantime, you can. Do you have a follow up question?
It actually sucks because all this time I thought I could just save on that 15%, but I didn't need to be registered for that. So it sucks that I have to register for that because I know what it means to be registered for that. I don't want to go there yet.
Mhm.
Zazo, do you have a question or follow up question? Good evening.
Good
Hello.
evening. How are you? I've got a comment. I'm an accountant myself, and
Okay.
um, guy. Okay, so my advice is, I know we all are cost conscious and things like that, but when it comes to tax specifically for farmers, given how complex it is, rather get someone who actually knows tax for farming and engage them. Whatever amount you pay, trust me, is worthwhile. I'm an accountant myself, right?
Mm,
And I can do my own tax return,
yes.
but I actually engage someone who knows tax for farming to do my farm tax returns because of how yeah, I don't have the time to figure out all the intricacies that actually are involved, and
Yes.
and and, and for that reason I actually am comfortable paying someone else. But I wanted to say the best advice I can give to the farmers here is, given how important like your tax status and your tax compliance certificate is, especially if you want to tender or even apply for farms and things like that. This is an area where I think you should actually be prepared to just fork out the additional amount of money that a tax person charges you to then get your affairs in order.
Mm,
So I wouldn't advise anyone to try and do this themselves if
yes.
they don't actually have the knowledge to do so because of the complexities that are actually involved. And also, if you then mess it up, right? SARS is not going to be lenient because you didn't know. Ignorance is not a defense.
Mm,
You're better off being on the good side of SARS because, especially if your business is to grow, you don't want to then have issues where they come and do an audit and they find that you have actually been um, under declaring tax and stuff like that. That will then stuff you up in terms of your
yes.
reputation and all. So my advice really is, um, find someone who knows tax for farmers and engage them and let them do the stuff for you for whatever additional amount of money that you pay. I think it's worth it. Thanks.
Yes. Yes, that's 100% correct as a fellow accountant. Obviously, now I'm assuming that none of you is actually doing these calculations yourself, but you have an accountant who will help you with these things. All that I'm trying to do is just to give you some sort of a rough idea of some of these matters so that when you are engaging your accountant or tax practitioner, you can at least somewhat hold him into account to say, hey, I heard there's a diesel rebate. Do I qualify? Hey, should I be registering for that? All those kinds of things. So, yes, that's the best way because sometimes what we find is when there's absolute ignorance, and I've seen this many times, I'll just get to talk or uh, just now when I finished the sentence. When there's absolute ignorance, accountants, some accountants have been very shady people, and I'm sure Lo and Azazo, you've come across some very funny things where people are saying your tax is this amount, so uh, please pay into my account and I will pay to SARS, only for them to steal that money. So, I mean, one time there was a trucking company that the owner lost 7 million rand uh, because he sent the money to the accountant instead of paying it to SARS directly, which brings me to the point. Obviously, whenever somebody says, "Okay, this is how much you're going to owe SARS," you say, "Okay," they are supposed to say, give you the payment reference number to pay into the SARS account. That payment reference number will be on that particular assessment that's saying how much you owe. So always ask for that. Don't just pay things into people's accounts so that they pay SARS for you. It's horrible. Okay, somebody had a question.
Oh, it was me. I wanted to ask in terms of registering the farm. Do you need to register the farm as soon as you make your very first million within a 12-month period, or you need to make that million consistently, maybe after 24 months or 36 months or 48 months?
Yes, very good question. Sometimes basically the law starts by saying you must be over a million rand in a 12-month period. But if you're over a million rand because it was an unusual year, it was out of the ordinary, let's say, some sort of event like that. But after that 12-month period, things will go back to normal. And no, normal being you being below a million rand, then you don't have to register for that. Some people, what they do is they register upfront in anticipation that they will pass that million rand mark. So, for instance, you are in month one of your business, has just started a month ago, and you have a feeling maybe you got a contract to supply whatever particular thing, and then you know that that contract is worth far more than a million rands per annum. So you register upfront. It's actually, it might be better to register upfront. And some wait for those 12 months. They do the check. Then they say, okay, I'm just about to pass a million rands. So let me register at that point.
You covered Togo. Okay, thank you. By Black is back. We had lost him for a while. So we
Mm.
were just told that in order to actually save the 15% from the feed, you have to be vet registered. That's the painful part.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I was Amanda. Were you giving me a summary there?
Yeah, just on that
All right.
particular topic. Yeah,
Okay, so you have to be VAT registered in order for you to not pay VAT on feed.
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay, so now is this VAT a different type of VAT because they saying that is zero VAT rated, or is it a similar VAT like for my construction company?
Well, that is what they do call zero rated. But that is the person who is selling the vet, not the vet, the feed to you. That's why you must, that discussion needs to take place. Hey, before they even invoice, hey, I want to buy this from you. I'm a farmer, so you don't have to charge me vet. And then they say, okay, how do I know you're a farmer? And then you provide the notice of registration form and whatever else, any other document that proves you're a farmer and that you are registered for vet. So I said I'd get a list of the items for which you should not be charged VAT. So this is you now buying items for which you shouldn't be charged VAT. So it's animal feed, it is fertilizer, pesticides, uh, yes, and seeds. Those are the ones that I can see
Oh,
here.
what about manure, if I may interrupt?
That's what you are buying. I'm assuming that's it's
It's
in the realm of
fertilizer, yes.
fertilizer. Yes. All
So
right.
yes, is where you can also save on fertilizer. But the key factor here is that we have to be registered for VAT in order to get to save these amounts.
If
Yes.
if you're not registered, I mean, if you are registered but you don't generate over a million rand, can you actually claim back your VAT, or you can't really claim it if you don't make over a million a year?
You definitely can claim back your VAT. So, this whole issue of a million, VAT has what's called compulsory registration and then voluntary registration. Compulsory means that no matter what, you have to register for VAT if you meet this criteria. That is the million rand criteria. There, you don't have a choice, you have to. If your revenue is over a million rand, you must register for VAT. Otherwise, there's penalties and all sorts of things. Now, voluntary registration means you are registering for VAT, like the name suggests, voluntarily. In other words, you don't have to. You're not even at a million rands, but you're saying, you know what, I'd like to. Uh, it is a conversation to also have with your accountant, because he knows those numbers. Like how is your income looking? How are your expenses looking? Before he can say, okay, it's worth it. It's worthwhile to register for VAT. And I will say that if you if you register for VAT, usually if you register for VAT before you need to, paying you will be paying SARS 15% more, just because you can claim items, expense VAT on certain expenses. Overall, you will probably owe SARS VAT. So why put yourself through that headache? That's why you can look at it that way. But everything is facts and circumstances specific. So you will have to talk to the accountant. Yes. Question?
Okay, so sorry. I'm probably gonna ask a question that you have already answered.
Hmm.
I want to understand this in layman's terms.
Yes.
So what I did for my construction company, I voluntarily registered for VAT,
Mm-hmm.
and then they gave me a VAT number.
Yes.
And then I think it's every second month
Yes.
I need to do to file returns.
Yes.
So I submit the things that like the invoices that has been paid and there was VAT and so forth. I can balance that because I do that online.
Yes.
I want to understand, is that the same when it comes to farming, or is it different? That's for me, that's the most important question, because if it's the same, then it means then there is no difference whatsoever. It's the same as just running a normal company. Then they should have just said so instead of saying zero VAT rated whatnot. Because I mean, we all know that if you are registered for VAT, you're not paying the 15%. So
Yes.
is
It's
it different when it comes to farming, or is the same? I can treat my construction company the same as the farming company. Is there any difference?
overall it's the same, but there are specific items on which there are specific expenses that you incur on certain things, such as animal feed, fertilizer, pesticides, and then those items, there is no VAT on those items. Other than that, it's exactly the same. The VAT regime does not really have any special provisions for farming, other than these things that I'm speaking of.
Okay, all right, fine. Sorry, once again, I want to understand again at the level of a layman. So I'm
Yes.
registered for VAT, and I have my farming company is registered for VAT. I'm going to Van Niekerk to buy a bag of feed. When I
Yes.
get to Van Niekerk, I expect that the bag of feed that is priced at 350, I'm going to pay 350 less the 15% immediately.
100%.
So then I don't have to file on that particular item, or rather, okay, so that is the saving that I'm
Exactly.
talking about.
Exactly. It's exactly as you've stated. That expense of that bag of feed from Van Niekerk, it since it doesn't include VAT in it, it has it has nothing to do with your calculation of VAT. You just don't take it into account. You're
Okay.
100% correct.
So, however, a person who's not VAT registered will pay that money inclusive of VAT.
100%.
Perfect. Then it answers all my questions. This means then it's worth doing it. Voluntary register for VAT and start paying 15% less and get an accountant to help me as well.
Although I will say that, just give me a second. You may save on the feed and some of these other items, but I get it has to do with volume of how big those expenses are compared to other expenses. So you may find that if you look at all your other expenses, um, they are a lot worth a lot more than the feed. So yes, you're saving 15% of the feed, but again, on the sales side, your sales are greater than your expenses. So the VAT that you owe SARS from what you're selling is more than the VAT you're claiming from SARS from what you are buying. So that calculation, like I was saying, it has to do your accountant or you need to do that to see if net you are better off or worse off. So if you're comfortable with it, then yeah, talk to somebody who knows exactly what they're doing. Otherwise, if you know exactly what you're doing, you can do so.
Also,
Yes,
Amanda,
Abuti.
I have a last question. Sorry, I don't want to hijack because a lot of people
No,
probably
it's
have
okay.
questions.
That's why I brought you back up.
All right. So here's the situation. And now I'm a broiler farmer who is selling street vendor way, right? I
Yes,
want to register for VAT so that I get, because now remember my farming inputs is 80% of my operation goes
yes,
into feed. So
yes,
I already start with a savings of 14,000 rands in the beginning of my
yes,
cycle due to that 15%. Now
yes,
I start selling chickens. And when I'm
yes,
selling these chickens, I'm selling them to Aus Amanda and she buys 50 rand cash in hand.
yes,
Now, there, do I charge her VAT since I'm already VAT registered or not? Because then the way I see it from a layman's point of view is that it's supposed to be savings all the way for me. I want to register specifically for the purchasing of feed, and that's all. And that's it.
mhm,
All the other things are taken care of because the drinkers are already there, water is already there, electricity is already there, but feed is killing us. It's costing 80% of the operations, and I'm hearing that I can save 15% on that. Basically, that's
yes,
the bottom line. We want to get to that level where we say we want to save cost on feed. But now I'm concerned about the sales that I will be doing because, for instance, it's end of the month. I'm expecting sales to 150,000, and those
yes,
sales are gonna be in cash in
yes,
hand. And I
yes,
wanna take that 150K, go to Van Niekerk, cash, and buy feed again, less 15%, and then keep the profit, which is mine.
yes. I see people are laughing there. Look, that you don't choose. I want to take advantage of the VAT system here, but on this part, I'm fine. So yes, in short, you will have to charge VAT on that chicken. Because you don't pick and choose. Because uh, that's why it starts with you must be registered for VAT. Meaning, and at the starting point of that is that whatever you sell, there's VAT on it. So that's where we start. Before we even go to expenses, we are starting there. What you're selling, assuming that is the law uh, says you don't have to charge VAT on it, like certain items. You must charge VAT on what you're selling, and from that you're subtracting the VAT on purchases to the extent that you've been charged VAT on whatever it is you're buying. Of course, one.
Yes, Zazo, you can go. I'll go after you.
Yeah, I think the question that has been asked now is actually quite important because this is why when you do these things, you actually need your accountant because you might think that you're saving, right?
Yes.
But remember then that when you are selling, you need to then add VAT. And if you don't add VAT and you sell your chicken for whatever you sell it, kokasi and stuff, SARS will say whatever you've sold minus the VAT portion is what should then go into your pocket. The other amount should actually go to them as an output VAT. So
Yes.
so I think it's important that you in making these decisions to actually say you want to register. You might see that there's a benefit on the when you buy stuff
Yes.
side, but then there's then the if you can't pass the burden of the additional 15% to your consumer, right? Then it means that money is actually going to come out of your pocket, and then you are actually worse off. Because
Yes.
if you think about it, you're going to sell your chicken higher than the input cost. So net, you're actually worse off than if you were to just pay the VAT and sell your chicken at whatever amount. So yeah. The, that said, there is a lobby though. I think there are some people who are lobbying the government to say they should actually make chickens um, VAT exempt, so that you don't need to then pay SARS any VAT on yourselves. But until that
Yes.
happens, right now it's still in people are still lobbying. It's not yet passed. So there's still VAT on chickens. So if until that happens, you're actually better off, in my view, if you're not above the million threshold, not actually registering for that. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. It's a very common misunderstanding, that thing. So you often find that's why when I meet small business owners and they are not yet at a million rands and they've registered for VAT, my first question is, why did you register for VAT? Now you have to submit 6 VAT returns every year. You must pay an accountant to submit those VAT returns, and overall, on average, you will be worse off. Even, however, of course, the disclaimer is I don't know your specific circumstances, and a lot of people do say that the reason I'm registering is because I got this client who I got this big contract from this client, and he says I must have a VAT number. That's usually what we find happening out there. And Zazo, maybe you can confirm that as well. Yeah.
What I wanted to say as well is exactly what Zazo said. Wuti, perhaps we should wait till Fair Play. We actually did host Fair Play in the space last week. Once Fair Play wins the lobby to have chicken
Liseli, how
zero
true
VAT.
is this? I've heard from a friend that if
We
you own a business
sithokozile
that will
uyangizwa
generate over a million
ngiyakhuluma.
rand in a period of
Sithokozile.
12 months, you can literally use the farming business as a shield to hide away from what's this? To hide away from SARS. Is that true?
I think he's been muted.
Well, okay. So Amanda, I don't know if you want to continue, but guys, you can't hide from SARS. Let's get that right. You cannot hide from SARS. You can't use a business to hide from SARS. You can't use if they catch you, right? You will actually regret ever doing whatever, because there'll be penalties. There'll be and those penalties are so severe that it's not worth it. So just do your handle your tax affairs properly. Get help when you need to, and that's where I'm an accountant. Maybe people think I'm singing for my supper, but like I said, I'm a farmer. I actually get an accountant to actually do my tax returns, because it's that important. I need to get it right, and I don't have the time to actually be figuring out how the farming tax works. So for me, there's no stock, or there's no way to hide from SARS. You can't use a business to hide stuff from SARS.
I know there are people that think they can hide from SARS. So thank you for saying that. Because when the taxman comes for you, you will cry tears. I know someone that's owing over 1 million rands to SARS. he's making a lot of money, but he can't pay that whole million at once. Now you have to do payment arrangements, and then some months, then your pin expires and you have to go request another one. And everywhere where you're trying to do business, they will say, no, your pin is not valid, please get us another one. I know someone was trying to get an approval to buy a plant, and they said, no, please get your pin sorted out. He had to wait for 2 months to get a pin, because the accountant had to make arrangements for him to pay certain amounts every month. So you can't hide from the
Hundred
tax
percent.
man.
And
Hundred
Amanda,
percent. And in my
so
experience, what I've found is it always happens at the worst time. You get audited, and then they find that no, you did things wrongly. So, and usually with SARS penalties is that I can tell you, usually, if you are owing SARS, let's say R1 million, I can bet you that you really owe them, let's say 400,000, 500,000. The rest is penalty. So you often find the penalties are equal to the amount that you SARS audited and saying you owe. So that in of itself, because they really punish that kind of, it's either evasion or gross negligence or whatever, even making mistakes in your return that you should have known better to not make. So I've seen people lose big contracts because they got audited by SARS at the wrong time. They were actually just on the verge of a breakthrough, if I can call it that. So yeah.
Abuti Bai Black, did you have a question?
No, no. I just wanted to say that at the end of the day, I don't think that there's any farmer in here who wants to hide from SARS. So the most important thing for us is, like myself, is I want to understand the benefits of registering. And
Mm.
also, one other important thing is that as a farmer, guys, I just want to remove this from the farmer's mind. We need to stop thinking in thousands and start thinking in millions. So this is a numbers game. We're not coming here into farming to be small. We're coming here to be big. And that is why we ask these questions, and we want the positive side of it as opposed to the side that scares you and say, no, don't go there, don't do that. We don't want that because we've remained small for a very long time. We want to get out of this position of always, when you arrive at Nova, they already assume you can't qualify to buy because you are black. We know that you are not vet registered just on arrival. So we want to get out of that mindset. We want to do this thing professionally. We don't want to run away from SARS. We want to get accountants. We want to do it proper and see how it can benefit us, even if it means that there's not good profit. And lastly, I must say that even myself, to register my construction company, voluntary register, when I started, was that some clients will not give you contracts if you are not vet registered. And I'm talking about a client who came to me and was giving me a contract here, 6 million rands. They said to me upfront, you're not going to get this tender if you are not vet registered. You have to be vet registered. So you have to
Mm.
make a decision. Am I going to take the 6 million, or I'm going to remain with my 600 rands and say, no, I'm not registering. This thing is going to be too big for me and what not. No, I went in there and I did it, and I got an accountant, and he was busy with the, pay for professional fees. Don't try to do everything for your by yourself. I'm just saying this to all the other farmers who are listening, to say, guys, don't run away. Don't think that this is now a wall, a brick wall that you are hitting and you cannot go through it. We have to do it. We also have to do it for the future generations, because all the white farmers that I know are all vet registered, and some way, somehow, they are benefiting out of this thing, and we also want it. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry, you can continue. Thank you.
Yes, 100%. The reason why, like I said with earlier, that you find that people who don't have to register for that usually do, is precisely because uh, they want a contract and they have been informed that, listen, to do business with us, you must be registered for that. So ultimately, a person has to do that cost benefit calculation for themselves. All right. Anything else, or shall we continue? Or because it's about an hour now, but I'm happy to continue.
I think you have covered most of this, because we would be told on the timeline that no, you guys can save when you buy feed. There's a VAT rebate, but we never knew exactly what the protocol or what the procedure was in order to get that. And now I can confidently say I'm fully aware of how I can do that, and if I want to do it, I will walk into SARS and get on with it. Um, okay, Robert. Good evening, sir. And then after that, Zolile, you can go.
Okay, evening to you.
Hi, Mr.
How
Robert.
are you?
Hello.
I'm fine. How are you
We're
doing?
fine.
Wonderful. Very nice. Yeah, I've just joined in. I never knew that we're having a space today, but I'm glad that I've met you maybe halfway or so. Let me got the point. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah. Now, I want just to talk two things very quickly. About, I've made a stage where you are talking about taxes and such and such. As somebody who has stayed in developed countries, many of them, I can tell you that it is very, very, very important to pay your taxes. The problem why people evade taxes mostly in Africa is because we know it is being mismanaged. That's the reason why mostly we avoid taxes in Africa. But if the people, if the government can really put our taxes into good use in Africa, we can be very far. So I understand. I understand why some, even in my country where I come from, Kenya, people don't want to pay taxes because they know that there are big fish, well-connected political elites who are supposed to pay millions and millions of shillings. Yet they don't pay. So they say, why me, a common person? Why should I pay a few thousand? Yet the big fish there is not paying millions because it's well connected. So if we all can join us and say, okay, now let's just pay taxes and let the government use it properly, we can go very, very far. That's number one. So because it helps in doing a lot of social services and things that the reason why first world countries are able to provide these social amenities and everything is because they properly use and manage the taxes that people pay. And people can know that, and our government know that, and put our tax money to proper use. We can be very well. Now, number two, about the tax of free inputs. In Kenya, there was a problem a few months ago, and of feeds, or particularly it was for chicken feed and cattle feed. So the government had to exempt to make that raw materials that are entering the country should enter the country tax free, so that farmers can get some kind of relief. So it's very, very important, since the agriculture, we have thought it as a backbone of most of African countries. It's very, very important for policymakers to make sure that we farmers get some tax break from either imports from or some medication that our animals use, or the plants or something like that. We should be at least, and that is a way of giving farmers some kind of initiatives to have some tax break in them. In Kenya, you see that some farmers have even stopped farming because the taxes are too high. The fees, the taxes are too high. Transport is too high. The fuel is also too high. The animals you buy is too high. The veterinary charges are too high, VAT and everything. So if we can get tax breaks from what holds our economy, that's farming, I think we can go very, very far. What I would like us to ask is for those who are making policies for us in Africa or in those countries, they can sit down and see that what kind of initiative they can offer to we farmers. I'm very glad that most countries in Africa, you import machineries free. If you want to put an industry like processing plant, you those machineries you bring them free. Tractors you bring them free. They are duty free. I'm very happy about that. But what about those chemicals that we import? What about those feeds? What about the worker? What about other things that we do use in farming? I think we should, if it is VAT, it should even come as below as around 5%. That can be very good. Instead of the usual 19%, 5% can be okay. So that only in agriculture, so that it will encourage farmers, and it will also make sure that our people buy food in a cheap way, because you see, hunger is a huge problem in Africa. So let me stop there. And thank you for the space. Mm,
Yes, thank you.
mm, mm.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yes, I used to work at SICA, or the Institute of Chartered Accountant, and also the Institute of Tax Practitioners. And there's a lot of lobbying that happens where people petition the policymakers to amend the tax laws to make business more friendly. You'll remember a few years ago they did on a separate issue with the sanitary towels. There was a lot of lobbying into that, and now there's no VAT on sanitary towels. That happened back in 2019. So it happens all the time, and it can always happen all the time. And usually, when you have a group like for instance the banks have a platform and they form a group and then they petition the policymakers. Even farmers have their own groups, so they can petition the government through those groups. So even if you can even approach, they can even approach the government. Usually, people lobby to request that a particular law, because every year the tax laws are changed. So they will say, no, please don't change it like this because it's affecting business. But sometimes these groups can approach government on just a fresh issue and request that they change certain things. Oh, there's a question. Zolile.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. The first question is, if you have been making a revenue of over maybe of less than R1 million, and then you get to making R1 million annually, can you claim back the VAT that that you th- can you claim VAT for the years that you weren't making? And is there a period where they give you like maybe you can backdate your VAT registration? So let's say right now I'm making 500,000. I'm not VAT registered. Next year I make R1 million. Can I claim some of that VAT that I didn't claim for last year?
Uh, no, you cannot. Because then you can, if you're gonna claim back that VAT, then you will have to also pay the VAT on the sales for that period. That's the logic of how the VAT system would work.
Yeah, but if you are like for me, I make dairy. It's dairy. So dairy is VAT exempt.
Yes.
Yeah. So will I be able to claim from the previous years, if that makes sense?
That one is a more technical. Uh, my initial impression is no, but there is a specific section in the VAT Act that may. I spoke to a colleague some years ago about claiming some very technical VAT expert. So he was saying that there was a provision that could allow you to do something like what you're saying, but I'm hesitating to give you a full answer. But my initial impression is no. But I would. This is where I say seek further tax advice.
Okay. And then do you have to renew your VAT annually, or how often do you have to renew it, your registration?
No, you don't have to renew. Once you are registered, you are registered. If you cease operations or things like that, or your sales I believe if they go back down to below R1 million, then you can deregister for that.
Thanks.
Zazo.
Just to help Solile out, so you can actually register and make your effective date of registration a period before the current period. So you can, but then you need to then submit returns for all those periods where they would have allowed you to actually backdate, essentially. Yeah, in your case, Olile, I would actually encourage you to register for that, because in your case, if you are then selling a product that's VAT exempt, whatever you then buying is then you can actually claim VAT, and reduce your cost that way. I,
Yes.
I, I do I do the same, because I actually mostly export. So I actually see that I get VAT returns rather than owing SARS and having to pay SARS, because of the fact that exports are VAT exempt. So that's for in your case, because you're a dairy farmer. If the product that you're selling is VAT exempt, then it actually benefits you if you register, and ask them to actually register and backdate the registration. They'll tell you the length of period for which you can do that, but you then need to have detailed records of what you would have bought, invoices and stuff. And I guess the challenge that you might have is that your invoices, I think you might have a challenge in that your invoices that you get you got when you bought the stuff won't have your
Wouldn't
VAT
have a VAT
correct.
number.
But so you have a problem there. But where it might be beneficial is if someone, if you've actually gotten goods, and someone still needs to invoice you from the past, then it might benefit you that way. But no, if you've already incurred the expenses, and you've already received VAT invoices for those, then you're not going to get a benefit from that, because your invoices won't actually meet the criteria for claiming VAT.
Yes, Zazo's 100% right. I that's why I would recommend that the you seek the advice of a vet expert, because I was aware that a certain vet expert once told me that you could, but he didn't really reference the section in the law that can allow that, even though your invoices would not have your VAT number. But that would be a hurdle, like Zazo is saying, that SARS is very strict on these VAT numbers, and if invoices don't have certain information, they will fight you on that. Yes, and you're right. There are certain, just so that everybody knows, there are certain businesses that almost always get VAT refunds. Exporters are some. If you export anything from South Africa to a foreign country and you're registered for that, um, you will almost always have refunds. That's why there are certain companies that are always audited. Usually, people who are always getting refunds are always audited by SARS, maybe not every month, but a few times in a year, because SARS wants to stop that kind of. I mean, we've heard of VAT schemes where companies that do not exist, there is no trading whatever whatsoever, but they are manufacturing fake invoices and sales invoices and purchase invoices. I mean, but they always tend to get found out. And I mean, there was one case where somebody, they defrauded SARS of 150 million. So it was a scheme that was going on for many years. Those people are now in jail.
It goes back to say that you cannot hide from the text, man. Guys, the floor has been open for questions, and I'm not seeing any more hands up right now. So I'm guessing that you guys feel that you're fully educated on tax and you know what to do. I don't know. Going once, going twice, gone. So Abutili Sedi, thank you so much for joining us. I would just like to say Uguti, if you can just give closing remarks, and then yeah, we'll be ending the space.
All right, thanks, Amanda. No, thanks for having me. I'm very glad that you have somebody like Zazo on the group, so that he's there to answer your questions, especially as he's a farmer, and since he is smart enough to not sort of also allow somebody else to do his taxes. But at least then, because he understands, he can always double, sort of, it gives him better accountability over the person who's doing the work. So sometimes, I mean, I have a friend who has her own business, and she's always trying to do the accounting and the tax herself. And I just tell her that she's wasting her time. She should be focusing on operations. She's always phoning me and asking me about on e-filing. How do you do this? How do you do that? And VAT and invoices. I'm saying, look, leave that to your accountant. When you must just have an overseeing function. So I hope you guys can do that, because ultimately, you should focus on operations and being profitable. And like that other gentleman was saying, you guys don't want to remain small forever, so you can't be worrying about these kinds of things with that much detail. Let the professionals do what they're meant to do. Find somebody via recommendation, because not all tax practitioners are created equally. Some know way less, some know more, and you might get it burnt here and there, just like it happens with whatever service provider we use. But that's part of life, that's part of doing business. So yeah, I hope it goes well with you guys, and fortunately I'll be able to say in the future that, oh, I once met this guy. And so I'm even at Pick and Pay or Spar buying some of your items. Hopefully you get those kinds of big contracts out there. No, but thanks everybody. I'm glad to have joined you. I might pass by one of these days to hear more about bee farming.
Thank you so much, Abuti. Yeah, no, we need to stop trying to be Obochomosono. It doesn't work. We can't. It can't work. I think I've been like your friend as well. And I think it's time that I actually put money aside for a bookkeeper. I mean, it's small steps. Bookkeeper, then tax practitioner, and so on and so forth. It's a learning curve. We make a lot of mistakes, and we never even see if we're making money or not when we're always doing everything ourselves. Um, Thank you guys for joining the space. Really appreciate your time. Like I always say, come through to the DMs, suggest which topics you want us to cover, so that we can have someone to bring us the information, because we don't know everything. Um, Another thing, on this second week of May, we are going to have a space on incubation. So all those that want to start incubating eggs, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing A to Z on how to incubate your fertile eggs to a hatched chick. So do join us second week of May. Do join us for the space. Thank you very much. Good evening. I think Zolile, Robert, did
Yeah.
you guys have anything that you wanted to say before we close the space?
Yes, just one thing about the situation there in South Africa. I read that the government is lobbying for the poultry farmers so that the poultry farmers are lobbying the government to stop the import of poultry into South Africa. How is it going?
Yes, actually, in regards to that, guys, what Lisa D spoke about, when he said that when we are together as a lobbying team, it's very much possible to get the government to change certain um, things or certain rules.
Mhm,
So basically, we have started a group,
mhm.
and um, we are going to register ourselves as a non-profit organization,
Yes.
and and we are going to start lobbying for some things as upcoming farmers or emerging farmers, because we feel that our voice is actually not heard. Nobody is standing up for us, so we're trying to do something for ourselves. So we do have a group, guys. There's a WhatsApp group, and we are going to register pretty much soon, because we've already identified the executive. And once we are registered, we are going to work closely with Fair Play, because I think they are fighting for the same things that we would be fighting for or similar, even though some of them are not farmers. So for us, it's more personal. So if you guys are interested in joining that group, it's somewhere on the timeline. I will find it and I will bring it back up so that you guys can join in on the WhatsApp group. Yeah, basically that's what we are fighting imports. We don't want imports. We want the tariffs to go up, and they should go up to an extent of them having to sell chicken at the same price as us. Then level ground.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, because I see countries that do care about their farmers. They really do protection. Like a country like Denmark, you cannot easily import, let's say, dairy products in Denmark because they rely on it very much. So it's also very important for South Africa government to really protect. We poultry farmers also are coming who are wishing to come there and set up the poultry farming. Thank you very much for that information. And we wait for the WhatsApp number.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you actually for reminding me about that. It's
Yeah,
actually quite crazy that I heard that in Kenya, you guys VAT is 19%. So
yeah,
we're still at a better place.
yeah.
Zolile, closing remarks?
No, not much. I just wanted to say that I think that's a great initiative. Because even us in the dairy, a lot of the milk in South Africa is imported. So yearly, dairy farmers are fighting for the price of a liter to increase. I think right now the average is 6 rand per liter, and then some people are getting 6 rand 50. Yeah, so that's a great initiative. I'll definitely want to be a part of it.
Awesome stuff. I was about to ask if you guys have any organization that fights for you guys, because what we realized is that at the DTI, there's nobody that sits at the table when they are discussing the poultry master plan to say that no, there are emerging farmers, and they say that they will be able to raise enough chickens for South Africa, so therefore they do not want imports. We don't have somebody that says that. People talk about us, but we're not there, and they will be talking maybe to an individual instead of speaking to an organization. So our organization is not closed out from other farmers. It's just an initiative for SA emerging farmers. I think it would be better that way.
Yeah, we don't. I don't know of one at the moment, and the thing is, most of the time, um, emerging dairy farmers are very far apart from each other. So it's very difficult to get us to come together. It has been very difficult for us to come together. But yeah, I think social media makes things a lot easier for people to come together. I think I've met like two dairy farmers on on Twitter, and I'd love to interact with more, and find out how things are in your area.
Okay. I don't know how we can or what we can do to help you in that regard, but I mean we can try, because that's how we all met each other. We also didn't know, some of us don't even know each other in that same group. However, I mean, the people that are in the executive, some are in deep Pumalanga, some are in the northwest, but we all met through Twitter. So Twitter is an amazing place to actually meet other farmers that are in the same struggles as you. Then you'd be able to actually work together. I don't know, I mean, how about you actually tweet that you're looking for other dairy farmers on Twitter, and then tag us and we'll retweet the tweet. You'll probably find more than the two guys that you've already met. I think that's a good idea as well, Lile, don't you think? Okay, I think we've lost Zolile, guys. All right, guys, I am gonna send him a DM. Thank you so much. I was hoping Abuti Hang would be able to be back on the mic, but unfortunately his network is fighting with him. It is well. Good evening. second week of May, incubation. That's what we're going to be talking about. Come into the DMs. Tell me what we can talk about, what you want me to cover, what you want us to cover. And then, yeah. All right, guys. Good evening.